So it is that time again when I have finished a book and then I decide to just talk about it unscripted on my channel. Let's just jump right into this. This is Doctor Who Alien Bodies, and this is typically referred to as one of the best Eighth Doctor novels in the entire Eighth Doctor book range. And I've got to say, it's a tiny bit overrated, but it is really good. And I'm going to get into why I like it, and I'll probably get into spoilers. So, if you want to save yourself for this one, sorry. So, Alien Bodies. Let's talk about it. Alien Bodies has a lot going for it, alright? There are some really cool concepts in there, there's a lot of surrealism, the narration style I really like, and it's just a bunch of fun. The plot itself is a little eh. Basically, the Doctor has died, and somebody has come across his body, and this somebody is auctioning it off to a bunch of evil, corrupt, universal time-traveling powers, including Earth for some reason, because Earth is strategically placed or something. So you've got the Time Lords, the Daleks, Faction Paradox, which I'll get into in a little bit, and the Enemy and the Celestes are all invited to this auction, and they're all rival time-traveling races, and the Doctor shows up in his 8th incarnation and doesn't know what's going on until the middle of the book. This man is auctioning his body because there's this thing called biodata, and at some point in Gallifrey's future, biodata becomes a sort of weapon for the Time Lords and the Enemy, as they're referred to. And it's all... It sounds ridiculous as I'm saying it, but yeah, basically the Doctor's body is on auction, and that's the story. The Doctor has to try and get his body back from this mysterious person called Mr. Quixote, who is auctioning off his body. I'd say this is a very character-driven plot, and the book works well because of the characters, although there are some cooler concepts behind it that are worth mentioning on their own, like a time-traveling voodoo cult called Faction Paradox, which, oh my god. I've heard of Faction Paradox, right? And I wasn't sure about it until I read this book, and I absolutely love it. Faction Paradox is mucho gusto. So yeah, Faction Paradox, pretty solid. Basically, they're splinters of... They initially splintered off the Time Lords and stole their technology, and it worships the Grandfather Paradox as an almighty being. So that's fun. The narration style is really good in this. The narrator almost feels like a character himself as he describes what's going on. It's just a really fun book. Time-traveling voodoo cults and everything else that's great about this book aside, the Krotons are back, and that's where the book drags a bit. Krotons are not interesting. I'm sorry. You'll have really intense moments in the plot, and in the middle of it, you get to cut between the Doctor and his friends and the Krotons, and the Krotons are not interesting at all. Like, their characters are not interesting. I kind of feel like that's the point of them, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. And I think the story falls because of it. The story also falls because this isn't really a big doomsday type deal, and every character in it is acting like it is. And then it turns out by the end that this wasn't the Doctor's body after all, although everybody thinks it is. The only one who knows it's not the Doctor's body by the end is you, the reader, the narrator, and Mr. Quixote, who is the guy auctioning it off. And, we get a really nice depressing ending with the Doctor, but because it's revealed that the body isn't his body, it doesn't quite work. I mean, yeah, there are a couple flaws with it, but overall, I think it's a really, really good story. And you can find a couple really nice copies of this book for good prices out there if you just dig deep enough. And believe me, I didn't have to dig very deep to find this. Faction paradox is a very, very interesting concept, and I loved how it was executed in this book, and I'm excited to see what happens with the faction paradox arc going further, because I know it's an arc. They play a big part in later Eighth Doctor books. But yeah, if you can find this book, I definitely recommend it. This sort of puts everything into perspective that I've read over the past 6 months. Yeah, 6 months I'd say it was. This puts everything into perspective. This, I think, might be the first really good Doctor Who book that I've read, other than Sands of Time, of course. So, yeah, Alien Bodies. 9 out of 10.